I will call the February 17th meeting of the Local Police Commission to order and invite everybody here. If they'd like to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, under the consideration minutes for the January 20th meeting, I did make a small change that I notified Sherry about. It was just clarifying an individual's name that was mentioned in we were talking about midnight shifts and shortage of personnel and so forth throughout our county. And I just made one change there so that there has been a brief, well, not a brief, but a small change made. So do you gentlemen have any additional changes to the minutes?
No.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes as prepared.
Okay, and amended? And amended?
And amended, yes. As amended.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. And Chief, if you would be so kind as to move forward with the monthly reports.
Sure, and we have a little bit of a different format because the reporting month is January, so I really didn't have anything to compare it to, so we looked at January of the preceding year.
Perfect.
So that'll give us something good to look at. So the first slide, and you'll see it up on the, so you can see the, did you gentlemen have a chance to look at the new format?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I slaved over it.
Squared away.
Yeah.
Who did it for you?
Come on, I did it. So you're going to see a slight increase in January from 21 to 22 of 12.19%. It's reflected there on the slide. And you gentlemen, as usual, have the offenses, the backup data there, and you'll see 71 offenses for the month of January. Moving on to the next slide, arrests. Surprisingly, we were up from 21 to 22, 86.66%. So that's a lot,
Yeah,
from 15 to 29, yeah. So, and again, you gentlemen have the drill down backup data. If you want to take a look at a specific arrest, you can do that. Next slide in the deck is collisions. Up 77.778% from 9 to 16. So, and then you have the accident by street breakdown as part of your, and that should be the next slide, Captain. Yeah, okay. And then traffic stops were up from 104 January of 2021 to January 2022, 184.61% increase. Let me say that again, 184.61% increase from 104 to 296. So then you see the 10 tickets given out, that's a 3.37% chance of getting a ticket. So, but what hasn't changed, which was interesting when I did the breakdown, is there wasn't much of a percentage change from getting a ticket in 2022 to getting a ticket in 2020. There was a slight change, less than 1%. So you see that reflected in the yellow box there.
Would you think that the slowing down of COVID has had a market number?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's part of it. That's very good. That's intuitive and that's very good. And I think that's absolutely correct. I think January 21, we're still pretty COVID shy, if you will, and a lot of things are shut down relative to COVID. And then things are starting to pick back up again and get back to normal. But look at those jumps. Those jumps are tremendous. And it's indicative of something that I've been saying, that our population densities are increasing, whether we like it or not. We saw that the 2020 census in Wilkesboro, we were up by 400 people, reported up by 400 people. But I think we're a little bit more than that, because I think a lot of people have made Wolfboro their permanent home, even though they may be from New York or Philadelphia or New Jersey or New York City. They've left there to escape COVID, to escape the population density. They've made Wolfboro their home, and they don't plan to be going back anytime soon. And I think that's indicative when we look at the traffic. When I drive down some of our, what should be our quieter roads, I see a lot of out-of-state plates, and I see a lot of houses that should be seasonal, but they're occupied. And there's 3 or 4 or 5 vehicles in a driveway with out-of-state plates. So that tells me that people are coming up here, and that's been going on for a couple of years now. So I don't think we're at 6,400 people. I think we're probably floating around, sustained now, somewhere probably between 8,000 and 10,000 year-round. And then, of course, in the summertime, I think we're sustained somewhere between 14,000 and maybe 25,000. And that's what I think. So moving on to the next slide in the deck, you're going to see that's the personnel analysis report. So monthly activity for Detective Emerson for the month of January 2022, Detective Emerson investigated 6 new cases. Detective Emerson was assigned a new Internet Crimes Against Children cyber tip case involving possession, distribution of child sexual abuse images. Detective Emerson is also investigating a felonious sexual assault case. Detective Emerson worked with the Division of Children, Youth, and Families regarding 2 separate reports of child abuse. Detective Emerson assisted with the DWI investigation, which led to an arrest. Additionally, Detective Emerson continued the auditing, purging of items from the evidence room with Wolfboro PD, and this task is extremely time-consuming and laborious. Detective Emerson assisted the FBI with information regarding a case dealing with possession of a child sexual abuse image. Detective Emerson worked with the Drug Task Force this past month. He also worked with Grafton County Sheriff's officers and detectives regarding their download of forensic evidence from a cell phone. Incidentally, this past month, Detective Emerson assisted the Patrol Division with 2 motor vehicle crashes, a loose K9 out on thin ice, and helped to pull security for a patient at Huggins Hospital who was awaiting mental health treatment. Cases assigned this month is 1 scam, 2 child abuse cases, 1 felonious sexual assault, 1 possession, distribution of child sexual abuse images, and 1 DWI arrest. Percentage cases closed this month is 66%. Percentage of new cases closed by arrest during the month is 25%. Percentage of entire case closed this month is 65%. And you gentlemen have his investigative summary worksheet in the back. Likewise, Officer Devine was very busy up at the high school. January was the 5th month of school for SRO Devine with 20 full days of school. SRO Devine responded to several incidents in the high school, middle school, and 2 incidents at Crescent Lake School. SRO Devine wrote 1 arrest report, 12 incident reports, 1 juvenile delinquency petition. SRO Devine also participated in meetings regarding Kingswood Next Steps team. The Next Steps team is an intervention and support group for identified at-risk students to increase overall positive behaviors and academic success. It is outcomes driven. Incidentally, SRO Devine participated in 2 class discussions at the middle school regarding cyberbullying, online safety, and sexting. SRO Devine fielded 2 truancy reports, which had been referred to DCYF and juvenile probation. She also handled 1 CHINS petition, that's child in need of services, and that was completed for truancy and filed with the Ospey Circuit Family Court. This past month, she took a report of an assault at the middle school for which a juvenile delinquency petition is pending under the physical assault category. SRO Devine took 3 reports from students regarding incidents that happened in other jurisdictions. Those reports were then forwarded to the responsible investigative agencies outside of our jurisdiction. SRO Devine took 3 reports of sexual assault, 1 which did not occur in Wolfboro and was forwarded to the correct agency for investigation. SRO Devine and members of the police department were called to assist in finding a student who had run away from campus during the minus 18-degree day. That student was located safely. Lastly, and in addition to the several referrals to DCYF intake regarding truancy, she also filed paperwork with that agency for other issues such as, but not simply limited to, endangering the welfare of a child, sexual assault, runaway, and child neglect. SRO Devine assisted with 1 non-reportable motor vehicle crash on South Main Street in front of McManus Road involving 2 students. As we can all agree, having an SRO at the complex, at the school, at the Kingswood school complex is an invaluable tool for the PD, and if she were not there, I want everyone to think of the man hours that would have been tied up getting to and coming from this very, very busy area. And then you gentlemen have her report summary as a standalone document.
Where are we in getting training for the JSO?
You want to take that?
It's a work in progress. So right now, I have Prosecutor Morgan doing the training in-house. We're still waiting for the class at the academy.
Which, is there any anticipated date for that, or no?
No, we don't. We don't have any. In fact, are they even out with the new schedule yet?
Now it's on Benchmark, which is, they got new software. So it's all digital, everything's on digital. They're down 3 down at the academy right now. So things are a little slow.
How
And
many
plus they
classes?
have two classes going simultaneously at once. So they've never done that before.
I was just gonna ask you how many classes they run a year.
Yeah, they're trying to ramp it up. What do they want to go to 3, right?
4.
4. They want to go to 4. So I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to have to completely change the dynamic of the training down
How
there.
long does the training last?
16 weeks?
For JS Open?
No. That's a 2-week course,
Okay.
1 or 2 weeks, depending on how they do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's gainfully employed at the PD.
No, I understand that, but,
He's going to court with everything. He's also he's in charge of everything.
There's a lot of OJT ongoing, but we don't know when the 2-week juvenile course is going to be put on.
thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Chairman, we'll move into, with your permission, we'll move into the goals and objectives report, or do you want to do budget?
Whichever order you wish to take it in, we will go.
I think it'll be faster if we do goals and objectives, because a lot of the goals and objectives deal with the budget. And then
Absolutely.
we can do a very quick review of the budget, and we'll go over the budget paperwork.
Perfect.
All right. So, this is this will be my annual report on the goals and objectives, and I'm happy to say and report that we met every single one of our 6 goals that we had. A lot of these are going to be repetitive to some extent, and I think you'll see why here shortly. But the good news is that we have moved a lot of pieces of some of these repetitive goals into, and we've knocked them out. We've completed them, so we're moving on to the next phase. It'll all make sense when we start talking about the building and the dispatch console and so forth and so on. All right, so goal number 1, that was stay within the fiscal year 21 Wolfboro Police Department operating budget parameters. How we did, we met this goal. According to the documents that we have at the PD, we ended the year in the black with approximately $17,783.70 or so between the 3 budgets. This includes the PD with ending of approximately $500 in dispatch with just over $8,655.70. This number is not reflective of the approximately $10,291.22 of highway safety grant money and the $6,083 Attorney General grant money for overtime, which is not budgeted for or included in any of our DOJ grants. Both amounts are paid out of the PD's overtime budget and then later reimbursed to the town by the state of New Hampshire through federal grants. The past practice of the town finance officer would be to simply execute a journal entry to offset the budget. Our new finance officer prefers not to adjust in this manner, wishing to show the exact expenditure or over expenditure. I agree that this is important to do, but it is also important to offset the debit with the credit. In this case, to accurately reflect the true nature of the budget, we would need to offset the debit with that credit of $10,291.22 and $6,083.05 respectively, and that would be a total of $16,374.27. It is important to note that the first quarter FY21 reimbursements get paid back into the FY20 budget because the state's FY budget being October through September. We accounted for this in our calculations of the Highway Safety Fund. So in other words, gentlemen, what I'm telling you is we were actually reimbursed more money than the $10,291, but because the first quarter has to be put back, we included that, so that's not, that 10,291, that is an accurate number. You're looking at me funny, am I saying that okay? Okay. This aforementioned amount is the dollar figure which was paid out of the overtime line of the PD's budget but never budgeted for in the fiscal year 21 budget. Between these two figures, we would then increase in under expenditure by a total of approximately $34,157.97. For all three budgets, including the unanticipated grant monies that were not budgeted for, paid out of the PD's overtime line and then reimbursed to the town and not credited back to the PD's budget. It is important to keep in mind that the town executes a bottom line budget process. Lastly, this year, the PD proper saw many challenges with officers out on COVID-19 quarantine and or other long-term leave. This put an incredible strain on the PD manning because we were a 24/7 operation and those shifts had to be covered. Still, the PD was close on its budget, but not over. This is good news. This goal and its objectives will continue into fiscal year 22. So this is one of these repetitive, that will always be our number one goal, is to stay within budget. Goal number 2, complete the Wolfboro Police Department dispatch console process and installation. How we did, we met this goal. This has been a multi-year process. Presently, we are caught up on our funding of the new dispatch console with approximately $337,000 in our account. That's a capital reserve account, gentlemen. We have enough money right now sitting in the capital reserve account to purchase a new dispatch console if we must do so. Additionally, the town manager has said that he will provide supplementary funds if needed due to cost escalations in fiscal year 22. In fiscal year 22, we will reach out to our vendor and service provider to ensure that we are keeping pace with the cost escalations and to make sure we understand the financial requirements of installing the console to ensure we have enough funds on hand. If not, I will write a warrant article for the FY23 budget to make up for any shortfall after discussion with the town manager. Lastly, I am recommending next year that if we have the necessary funds on hand, and that we, the PD, start a capital reserve account for the replacement of this new console by putting in approximately $25,000 per year to ensure the town never gets into a position like it was in 4 years ago relative to the dispatch center. This way, we execute proper asset management and planning, further ensuring that the taxpayers never realize a sticker shock item in terms of a dispatch console. I think this is paying down, if you want, think of this as paying down the depreciation cost, if that helps. So let me explain this real quick in simpler terms. We have enough money sitting in the dispatch capital reserve account right now at $337,000. So if I had to tomorrow buy a dispatch console and put it in, we have just enough money. We're not gonna have a whole lot more. We know the price on everything is going up. Inflation is driving the cost of everything going up. What is that going to look like in later in 2022 or in 2023? I have no idea, but the town manager has said that he will provide supplementary funds if needed. We're trying to wait until we get a new police department built. Right now, that looks like, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute, that looks like it's going to be planned initially for North Main Street, but again, that remains to be seen. And this year's warrant article 23 is to get those construction grade drawings going so we can move in that direction. The plan all along has been to try to put the new dispatch console into the newly built police department. If we have to rip out an old console, put a new console back in the old building, and then a year or 18 months or 2 years later, rip it back out, that's going to be expensive. That is going to be very expensive. We don't want to do that. Guaranteed things will break. Those systems are not designed to be portable, right? They're not tactical systems. They're not designed. They're not very rugged. So, you know, we stand a good chance of increasing costs in here by thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. We want to try to avoid that if we can, which is the reason I've been holding off. So we have the money, if you will, in the bank. I want to hold off and do this just once because it will save taxpayer money. That's why we really want to build on North Main Street. It's the best location. I'll talk about that here in a little bit, but that's why we want to get warrant article 23 funded. Moving on, on this objective if it turns out that we have enough money in that capital reserve account to do what we want to do, to hold off for approximately a year, maybe add a little bit of money, or get the town manager to provide supplementary funds. I am still going to recommend in next year's budget moving forward that we put approximately $25,000 a year away to start building up that capital reserve account, much like we do for fire trucks and very large pieces of equipment. Because right now we're seeing that this is going to cost us probably a good $320,000 in that neighborhood if we were to buy it today. What's going to happen 20 years down the road? We'll probably get a good 20 years out of this piece of equipment. I don't want the next chief of police or executive officer sitting in our chairs to have to say, how are we going to fund this critical failure? If we have a critical failure on that critical piece of equipment, we need to be able to execute a plan, and that's my job, to make sure that we have plans that we can execute at a moment's notice. And that's what this is all about. So that's the reason we're doing it. This is asset management and asset planning, and this is the reason I'm doing it. So I just want to be clear why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this just to spend money, but we have to have a plan moving forward. You just can't not plan for a piece of equipment's failure, because you know depreciation is going to kick in, and you know that piece of equipment at some point is going to fail. We just don't know when. I'm assuming 20 years. It may only be 15, but time will tell. But that's the reason we plan. So this goal will continue on, and it may continue on, and we're monitoring. This becomes a sustain, and we're going to plan for the future. But we are going to continue this goal and some of its objectives into fiscal year 23. Gentlemen, any questions?
Not so far.
Moving on, okay. Goal 3, modernize police department headquarters, building and physical infrastructure, equipment, improve police and information sharing communication technologies. How we did, we met this goal with the pending $300,000 warrant article, subsequently, warrant article squarely on the ballot for fiscal year 22, and the boss decision to build a new PD on North Main Street. The PD is well underway to meet this goal by the end of fiscal year 2024. Additionally, the PD has been moving along at light speed, pun intended, on this goal, with the purchase of the new Ford Explorer Hybrid, the donated Tesla Model Y, and our donated electric bike. We have exceeded by 1 year our objectives in this area. Additionally, not only did we complete the competitive New Hampshire safety grant application process early, and we expect to be awarded additional monies because of our strong commitment to the programs and our strong working relationship with New Hampshire Highway Safety. However, time will tell on these funds. We're still sitting in a very good position with regards to the upgrades of the dispatch console and the moving forward with the police building on North Main Street. This goal will continue into fiscal year 22, along with most of these objectives, which will be reevaluated in October fiscal year 22 for the fiscal year 23 year. Moving on, goal number 4, enhance crime prevention, fiscal security posture of the town of Wolfboro, provide a safe and secure environment through presence, patrols, and training. How we did, we met this goal. This is an ongoing core task of the PD. The PD has been engaged in several high-profile criminal investigations, drug cases, and traffic crash investigations this past year. Our grants awarded by New Hampshire Highway Safety and New Hampshire Attorney General's Office significantly assist us in the execution of the objectives listed in this goal activity. Both myself and my officers continue to receive high praise and accolades from the public in our work performed. Though I would be the first to admit that sometimes we don't always get things right, we realize our mistakes, fix errors, and try to unring the bell and improve our work product to not make that same mistake twice. Additionally, with this year's budget, we're able to initiate the Juvenile Services Officer position, which will help address juvenile crime and help to slowly decrease juvenile and adult recidivism rates, reducing costs. Lastly, as evidenced by reporting of crime statistics over the last few months and the in-depth study initiated by the Budget Committee, we have seen that our crime reduction efforts are working, and that though still busy, we have been able to reduce crime and traffic crashes throughout Wolfboro. Please see the attached Budget Committee report for greater clarity on this topic. So I'm echoing in that regard, I'm echoing the analysis that was done by Tom Bell and commented on by Vice Chair Bob Tuffer of the Budget Committee after their very in-depth review and based off of the information we gave them, that they were actually, I think, fairly impressed with the crime data and the statistics.
They should be.
And they had very nice comments to pass on, so I was grateful for that feedback. Goal number 5, standardized police department vehicles. How we did. We met this goal for this year. This past year, the last of our Crown Victorias was removed from the fleet to make way for our newest Ford Police Intercept vehicle. This is a hybrid model which will help reduce gas and oil consumption, repair parts usage, and contribute to less noise and air pollution. Indeed, this FY 22, I was able to reduce our gasoline usage by 200 gallons, a $510 reduction in fuel costs. This vehicle, when it arrives, will bring the fleet up to our requisite number of 11 police vehicles. Of those, 3 Ford Taurus police cruisers, 7 Ford Explorer police interceptors, and 1 Tesla Model Y. Once the Ford Taurus reach their respective end of service life, roughly at 10 years, we will replace them with Ford Hybrid Explorers. This goal may be modified in fiscal year 23. So very quickly, right now, just to give the commission an overview, we have 1 Model Y Tesla. We have 2 Ford Explorer Intercept hybrid vehicles. 1 is presently serving in the fleet, 1 is still in upfit. So it hasn't seen service yet, though we have taken possession of it and physically own it. Everything else is a gasoline driven vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Everything else is gasoline driven vehicle. And of course, we have the 1 electric bicycle, which we're getting a lot of mileage out of. No pun intended. Or pun intended.
We're waiting for a Motorola radio.
Still. Wow.
Things with the supply chains and transportation woes and COVID-19 and everything else have really goofed up a lot of stuff, and it's interesting to see. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So moving on, and the last goal: sustain police community outreach programs and relations. How we did. We met this goal. It is my sincere belief that we have managed to improve our community relations over this past year, mainly since we have been able to offer faster and better service as our staff component has been fully realized. Additionally, we've been able to capitalize on this through our various radio and TV talk show programs, which garner a large following. This goal will continue in the fiscal year 22 as a sustain. I know our PD is a success in this area, and we are constantly receiving donations for equipment and to support our community outreach programs such as the Children's Christmas Fund and the Police Association, which provides, among other things, scholarships to deserving Kingswood students each year. And this is where I'm going to put a particular plug in for the Wolfboro PD. On 11 March, and part of our community outreach program, we're doing a fundraiser for New Hampshire Special Olympics, and it's going to be on 11 March. It's going to be down at Clearwater Ledges. Our good friend in the fire department, Lieutenant Andre DeVere, personal friend of mine, is letting us use his facility yet once again, and members of the Wolfboro Police Department, to include members of the Police Commission, will be jumping in to the near frozen and frigid waters of Lake Winnipesaukee with yours truly to raise money for the New Hampshire Special Olympics. Now, let me just talk about this. Is a great organization that provides athletic competition each summer down at the campus of the University of New Hampshire. In order to do that, of course, they need a lot of money to do that. All the money raised in this program goes to them. All these donations go to them. The police department doesn't see a dime of this money. But we do want your support, and any dollar amount that you donate is greatly appreciated. You can donate online through Facebook. You look for the I'm Freezing for a Reason ad that you'll see, and there's a number of officers that are participating in this, and to include all 3 commissioners. And so click on me, click on me, but you can also click on one of them and donate any amount of money that you want to donate, and see us jump into the frozen waters of Lake Winnipesaukee. It is a hoot, and we do have all the obligatory safety measures in place. We have a warming trailer, we have rescue swimmers in the water, we have ladders in and out of the dock, so we've greatly mitigated the risks. But I will tell you, I did it last year, the water is cold.
I know.
Yes, you do.
I think we should also thank the propane company for.
Oh, yes, absolutely, thank you very much for mentioning that. So Easton Propane is our partner in this very worthwhile event, and they bring down Cider Berry and Chuck Clement are the guys behind this. They bring down their Eastern Propane trailer, and they have a crew down there, and they set up a propane fire pits or burners for us. And it really is well done, and we would not be, quite honestly, we would not be able to do this fundraiser safely without them. So we're very grateful and appreciative to Cider Berry and his team, and we're just very grateful that they're willing to support us. And this will be the 2nd year that we do this. So Cider and his guys, thank you, Cider. I know you're watching, so thank you very much for doing that. And that's very good. So please come down and watch us. The captain will be there filming Facebook Live.
Hey, somebody needs to film it.
Yeah,
You know?
So you will
Posterity.
see that being filmed, and it is it is a very worthwhile event. I've been supporting Special Olympics since I've been a police officer here now for almost 26 years, and before that, Stan Stevens really supported Special Olympics. I think this agency has been supporting this organization for close to 40 years. It's got to be close. It's got to be at least that.
I think it's really significant that they create a whole program for law enforcement throughout the entire state
Right.
to participate in this, that special recognition.
And last year we were able to raise a significant amount of money that we were actually singled out and mentioned by name by New Hampshire Special Olympics. So we want to do that again. Again, it's a very worthwhile program. This provides a weekend of athletic competition for children who are in need of that type of assistance. It's all done with the utmost of care and compassion for the children. It's really a good program. So I want everybody to seriously consider donating to that. It's a great program. And again, click on any member of the Wolfboro PD and as long as you click on me. But click on any member of the Wolfboro PD and make a donation. That would be greatly appreciated. So Mr. Chairman, that concludes the report on goals and objectives. Subject to your question, Mr. O'Brien, do you have any questions? I know you wanted to talk a little bit about this,
Yeah.
and
Well,
this was
to
really
me, the significant thing is for 22, what are the significant things that you have moving forward that are continuation from 2021, 2022, that are still going to be pursued?
So that's a really good question. So every single one of the goals and objectives that you saw on here are again going to be, well, I shouldn't say every single objective. Some of the objectives are going to change. The goals are going to are multi-year goals. So you're going to see sustain in the community outreach. You're going to see stay within the operating parameters of the budget. You're going to see the building, because that's not completed yet. That won't be completed until 2024. But the individual objectives will change, because instead of now getting the construction grade drawings, for example, hopefully the citizens will vote on that in the affirmative, and then now we'll move on to the construction plans, breaking ground, and doing everything that we need to do to essentially erect that building. So the objectives will change, the goal will not. Same thing with the dispatch console. That'll definitely be a sustain. We're gonna sustain that at this point. The objective may be to lift and shift and maybe start planning for its eventual replacement or depreciation cost, however you wanna look at that, however one can better ride. Some people would have difficulty with understanding the depreciation, paying down the depreciation. So, but yes, the goals are gonna stay the same. We still have to modernize the fleet. I'm not gonna be happy with the fleet until we get the Ford Tauruses out and hybrids put in. So, did that answer your question, sir? Yeah. The hybrids save us money. They save us a lot of money. There's just no doubt about it. The Tesla saves us a lot of money. And
Especially right now.
especially right now with high fuel prices. So,
Well, one of the things that does come back in my recollection from the things we've talked about is staffing on the midnight shift. Again, to not necessarily complete that, but to begin the phases of examining it and to work towards a safer solution.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think that is something that we have to do, and I think the first step in that is we have to key up a discussion with the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee, and we have to sit down and we have to thrash that around, because it's not simply the hiring of just one officer. One officer will not get you the requisite coverage that you need. You're gonna need basically 3 officers, 2.5 to cover the hours. You're gonna need 3 officers. It's interesting to note, since you said that, and again, I just wanna say this so everybody knows with what we're dealing with. The town of Ospey, several months ago now, 3-4 months ago, ended its midnight shift. It no longer has a midnight officer out, right? They're off the road often by 2,300 hours. We just received an email from the commander of Troop E that his troopers will no longer be out on the road until 2 in the morning. They're now off the road at approximately 23:30 hours, 11:30 p.m. The Sheriff's Department is off the road by 2,300 hours. So, and what's driving the train on that are personnel shortages, right? They're trying to manage their schedules as best they can, and they just don't have the personnel. Wolfboro has always been 24/7, and I think there's a huge risk in this community if we were to remove our midnight shift. That is something I would not advocate for, and that would really be a mistake. Having said that, I do call that our most dangerous shift. And the reason it is our most dangerous shift, now please understand, I'm not calling it our most busiest shift, I'm calling it our most dangerous shift. And the reason that it's, in my opinion, our most dangerous shift is it's quiet, and often when you do have an event, it's a bad event, and they always have a tendency to go south, and they're serious. So a couple of cases in point, I'm going to go back to Corporal La Rochelle with the Pleasant Valley shooting situation that occurred at approximately 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. We just had, thank God, we had one very experienced officer and one younger officer on duty. The younger officer made a DWI stop. Because he has good training under his belt and he has good leaders, he immediately recognized some of the warning signs in the DWI stop and called for backup. A sergeant who had just literally gotten off duty heard the call, was in his own POV heading home, heard the call, turned around, drove back to the police station, jumped back in a cruiser, went out there. The driver of the vehicle, once he learned that he was going to be arrested for DWI, began to resist arrest. This was on 109 East, out by Lake Wentworth. So now at 2:30 in the morning, you have two police officers fighting in the middle of the road with a drunken subject. And it took every bit of strength of those two officers to get this young man into custody, and then only to find out that he was armed after the fight.
Really?
He had a concealed firearm on his person.
Oh, wow.
So this highlights why I call this the most dangerous shift. And at any other point in time, that officer would have been by himself. Had that supervisor not heard the call and said, I gotta get back, this sounds like it's gonna be bad. And that's what you develop when, you know, I remember when I was a sergeant out on the road, you know, and the calls would come in, I could say, that's a DWI crash, yeah, we gotta start heading, you just know, you just get that sixth sense, and you know, you understand, hey, I gotta get out here. So it is the midnight shift is dangerous, and one of the other reasons why it's dangerous is because there is very, very limited backup. It's very limited. And let's look at, you know, our partners around the area. You know, New Durham isn't running a midnight shift in their town. Those officers are on call. Tufton Borough isn't running a midnight shift. Those officers.
Middleton must not be either.
So we have Alton, and sometimes Alton does and sometimes Alton doesn't. I think presently they are. But Alton is the largest town in the state of New Hampshire. What happens if that midnight officer is over on the town line in Guilford?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good hour before he's able or she's able to get over to Wolfboro. So it's not like even the old days when I was working the midnight shift and I could call Troop B and have a couple of troopers, you know, come to my location, or call the sheriff's department and have a trooper and a sergeant arrive. We don't have that luxury anymore. I would dare say it was easier when I was a sergeant. It was easier when I was a patrolman. We had more towns that were running midnight officers. Or midnight shifts. We just don't have that luxury anymore. So all of these things aside, I think we need to keep a discussion with the Board of Selectmen and with the Budget Committee, and we have to look at trying to do this in such a way that it's not a sticker shock to the citizens. And we have to thrash around the discussion back and forth, and because you know, you always want to thrash around ideas. You don't want to thrash people, right? But you want to thrash around ideas. And you know, as Selectman O'Brien said, you know, once said, you want to torture the numbers, you never want to torture the people. And that's very true. And if we have to, I am all for putting a referendum to the voters and say, hey, how do you feel about this? You know, let the voters weigh in. I think the voters are intelligent enough to realize that it's in their best interest to do this. So those are my thoughts on the subject. But yes, I think it's now 2022. Yes, we live in a beautiful area. We live in a very bucolic town. It's easy to forget that we're no longer in Boston or Cambridge or Pittsburgh or wherever we came from. But we still have bad people around, and we still have crime, and bad things do happen, and when they happen, we want to be prepared.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, sir?
Well, I think we've complete agreement on this subject.
Yeah, and just so you know, I know Chief John Ventura from Wakefield has moved off. He's left that town, or he's leaving that town, and he's going to be the chief in Brentwood. Now that's public information, and or Brentwood, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Brentwood. And so he and I were speaking. This is before I learned that he was leaving, and he and I. Now he's an attorney as well as being the chief of police over there. And he was saying the same thing. He was wanting to go to, he wanted a second officer on the midnights, and that was in Wakefield, because he had the exact same concerns that I do. And their activity is a little bit, you know, not quite, they're not quite as busy as Wolfboro, but they're close. They're close. He was telling me some of his numbers, and they were within about, 50 or 60 arrests or incidents of the Wolfboro PD. So they're busy, because these numbers are the numbers that we report are high for our area. They are high.
Well, just with what you had reported on earlier, and I don't want to take the whole lead in all of this, but the significant increase in the number of people who are now residing here also add to the possibility that at some point there'll be an increased probability that they'll come into contact if they're out of line with the officers. And if you only have one,
It's easy to be overwhelmed.
yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind too, and I know my development, I live in Winnipesaukee Estates, and we know from attending the selectmen's meetings that they just sold I should say the town took the lots for tax liens, the 25 or 26 lots in the Winnipesaukee Estates area. They took it for the tax liens a couple of months ago. There's a developer in there now looking to develop that land and to build up that road. So, and they want to start this May. As I met the developer, the site worker, who's developing the property. He said, "Yeah, I want to start the road this May, and it's going to be a 3-year construction project." So we know that there's going to be 25 high dollar homes in that area. Right, I've got this right from the developer's mouth, okay? So, do the math on that, you can figure, that's at least 2 to 3 people per home, probably 4, right? What's the average American family? Mom and dad and 2.5 kids, right? So, we're gonna have 2.5 kids, and that was funny.
15 no homes at Calden Farms.
So then you've got the development going on Bay Street, and then you've got the development that's going on phase 2 of Harriman Hill. And then you've got phase 2 of the Boston Sand and Gravel developments out on where you live. out by-
Brownsbridge Road.
Yes, right. So what is that, 4? Is that 4 or 5? I lost count. Development.
Yeah, 4 so far.
And I think there was one of the realtors in town is mentioning that he just purchased the land out by Winnipesaukee Lumber, and he wants to put in a trailer park. So, and then of course you got this workforce housing projects that's being proposed by a group in Wolfboro out, somewhere along the Bridge Falls Path area down by the old mill. So we have a lot of developments either ongoing or soon to be ongoing. We're increasing our population density. It's a beautiful place to live. It makes sense. Clearly, workforce housing is needed, right? Clearly, workforce housing is needed. And when we talk about workforce housing, we're talking just that. We're talking young professionals, right? And young tradesmen and women who are moving in the area. We need electricians, we need plumbers. These are the things that we need. And, we need young doctors and attorneys and so forth and so on in order to keep the community viable. So we know we need housing. And it looks like a lot of developers or a lot of people have seen interest in Wolfboro and are going to be building up the community. It's already ongoing. So sure, all of these things come into play when we talk about a second midnight officer. We really need that. We're in 3 to 5 years, the same dynamic that exists right now will not exist in terms of our population density. It just won't. It won't be the same. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
I agree.
Do we have 2021 budget review next?
We do. So
You emailed me the entire budget.
yeah.
I don't have, you have? I thought it was the email that you sent out. This is the whole town, right? You didn't send out just the budget?
I thought I did. I sent the.
There's a
I sent. I sent the budget that she updated.
Uh,
One moment, gentlemen.
yeah.
Yeah, there was one that was 6 pages long, one was 4 pages long, one was 81 pages long.
Yeah, we don't want the 81 page. That was for the whole town.
Yeah, but those, yeah, none of those were, it was these ones. That's what I had
But
here.
like, on the 4-page one, the actual versus budget PDF,
Yeah, I got,
What
that's
date
the
was that?
town again. That's not us. So all those,
Unaudited
yeah, those are all town.
from 126. Yeah, it's coming from
no,
Keystone.
not that one. It was sent last Friday.
Actual expenditures, so,
Well, it
These
should
are
have been
all-
Monday.
yeah, these are all the ones that,
On Monday.
He sent it to you.
yeah, I didn't get the actual. Do you have anything? No.
What is the 4-page one you have?
Well, the 4-page one is from Monday, it's the police budget.
Like this.
And does that shows the police budget expend at 99.9%?
9.931, yeah,
Okay, so gentlemen, go to that one.
What day was that?
Monday.
Can you forward that to the captain
Let's see.
from your email?
You have it, John?
What was the date or sometime?
It will say Monday next to it, you're gonna go. It's called, wait a second. It's under Mark Libby's name.
Oh, okay.
This is updated 2021
Yeah, gotcha.
Oh.
expenditure report. All right, let me,
Okay.
Oh, so the meeting was sent it out.
I'll forward
I was
this,
looking under Dean's name.
I'll forward it back to you.
We'll get it.
Step
We'll
one.
get it, we'll get it.
I'm
If you,
forwarding it to you now.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, updated expenditure report.
Come on.
There you go, on the bottom.
No, this is, okay, here we go. Got it.
Oh, perfect, there you
Got
go.
it?
Sideways
Yeah, it's how do you
though. Yeah.
On sideways.
unsideways it?
I don't know how you do that. How do you lock it in there? Do you know how to do that?
You're the iPad guru.
I know.
Yeah, well, if you, do these have a switch on this
There is a lock.
side that will lock it, or, open up your swipe down or swipe across? And it should give you the lock screen, that little,
Oh, yeah, there it is. Lock. There we go.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, if you want to go down to, this will actually be really easy. If you look at the police budget
Which way did you swipe to?
for the police department proper, right? So there,
swipe in the corner.
there's gonna be three budgets in there. There's gonna be the police department, there's gonna be communications and animal control.
Gotcha.
Don't switch.
The, police department budget is showing a 99.9% expenditure, actually 99.93% expenditure. So we ended the year, with approximately $1,300, in the coffers. So hold that thought. Then if you go to the communications, budget, and you're gonna see,
That's on page 3, yeah.
let me get there. So you're gonna see for communications,
$8,400 balance?
yep, there you go, 98.24% expended, so approximately $424.25. The reason that number was a little off, based off of the number I gave you in the goals and objectives, was because there was almost another $4,000 that came back in when they put the last 2 days of January back in the budget. Does that make sense? Or the first 2 days of January? So let me explain. Oh, where'd you get caught up?
Did you go to that right-hand corner and
Nice.
down?
Mr. Ryan.
You think? Did you do it?
I had it like that before, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what I said in the goals and objectives is really important. The town does a bottom line budget, right? So the police department, and I'm speaking to the audience because the commissioners already know this. The police department has 3 budgets that's responsible for it. It has the police department proper. It has the communications, right? Central dispatch falls under the police department. You know, we manage that budget. And animal control, we have that animal control program that has its own budget. And that's approximately $25,000 to $27,000. So those 3 budgets are what we manage. And at the end of the year, it's a bottom line. So the goal obviously is don't go over the bottom line, right? The bottom line, that would be bad, okay? So we didn't do that, that's good. And the last pay period in 2021 went 2 days into 2022. So proper budgeting and accounting requires that in order to get the checks out, they just take everything out of the 2021 budget, okay? But we're not resourced for that, right? That would cause an over expenditure, and indeed it did, okay? So what we have to do is pull that money back in from those 2 days from 2022 back in. For the police department, that was really close to, thank you very much. That was really close to, good job. That was really close to, oh, okay, you're goofing me up with the technology now. That was close to $11,000, I think it was 10,000 and change. $10,291, I believe, but in that neighborhood. That's a lot of money, so let me explain that real quick. Remember, the police department is a 24-hour operation, right? And again, I'm speaking to the audience because the commissioners already know this. The PD is a 24-hour operation. We have officers and dispatchers on duty 24 hours around the clock, and 1 January is a holiday for the town of Wolfboro. So I have 3 shifts in the police department and dispatch working around the clock, you know, and that's anywhere from, you know, if it's dispatch, it could be 1 dispatcher, but probably 2. So it could be anywhere from one dispatcher officer to 3 per shift, 3 shifts for 2 days, and one of those days being a holiday. That's a lot. And then there was overtime. We had the critical incident. We had the drowning incident that occurred on Lake Wentworth. So 2 sergeants were held over as personnel to help manage and take control of that situation. So we were busy that 2 days, and that's a lot of personnel around the clock for 2 days. So sure, that is going to be a lot of money for the PD, and that's what happened. So approximately $10,000 or so dollars, it was just over $10,000, comes back in to the police department budget proper. Correction, 11,000, I stand corrected, $11,108.71. Thank you very much, Captain. So that's how much money comes back in to the budget. And then on the dispatch side, it was well over, it was almost $4,000. It was $3,680 or something like that. It was in that neighborhood, comes back in. So, and then we were underspent in animal control by approximately $8,668. So all 3 budgets put us in the black just over $17,000. And then that other piece about the grants. So I just let me clear this up. So we do grants from a few different sources. We get our funding from a few different sources. We get a substantial amount of money from the Attorney General's office called DOJ grants. Now, the commissioners know this, but I'm speaking to the public. Then we get grants from New Hampshire Highway Safety, which that money comes from the federal government. It's managed by the state and divvied out and broken out among the various cities and towns. And we get a chunk of that every year. And then we do some minor alcohol-related work through New Hampshire Liquor Enforcement. That's also on a grant. So those are what we call unanticipated funds. Those grants, and last year was actually kind of interesting because even though we were approved for some money, they kept bumping us up. I remember going to the Board of Selectmen about 3, 4, 5 times with increases in money, and a couple of the times we had to go back and say, okay, this particular project, because we were initially funded at $2,000, but we got a plus up of $7,000. It's now close to $10,000. We had to have a public hearing on it. So this continued on through March, April timeframe, as I recall from last year. So some of that money was unanticipated. So we did not budget last year for any of that highway safety money. We did not budget for any DOJ overtime. That was completely unanticipated. And we did not budget for any liquor enforcement grant money. That was unanticipated. So what happens in that case is when those grants are awarded, we end up putting officers on patrol based within the parameters of the grants. Well, those grants are paid at the officer's overtime rate, so that money comes out of our overtime line on our police budget. So all told, we had, help me out here, we had maybe 16, it was about $16,000, right, of monies that came out of our overtime line. We were eventually reimbursed. We were reimbursed by DOJ, we were reimbursed by liquor enforcement, and we were reimbursed by highway safety. In the past, what would happen is the finance officer would simply do a journal entry on the budget and reflect the fact that we were reimbursed, so that expenditure would be credited, okay? But KC doesn't want to do it that way. She wishes to show the total expenditure, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But you have to remember that money came out of my budget, and that's an extra $16,000 that we need to make sure that we're taking into consideration. I understand it's a revenue, and it is. It's indeed a revenue. It goes to the town. It's a reimbursement. But it came out of my budget, right? Ultimately came out of my budget. So if I'm budgeting for it, that's different, okay? Because if I'm budgeting for it, it'd be a wash. So we do budget for a couple of functions like that. We have a function, the school resource officer, which is completely funded in my budget, but is reimbursed by the school district back, or a portion of that officer's salary is reimbursed back to the town. I don't expect to have that money credited because it's a wash. It's already budgeted for in my budget. And then there's a DOJ program that you gentlemen are aware of that is partially funded by the Attorney General's office. When that reimbursement comes in, I don't expect to be credited for that because it's already budgeted. But the other stuff that's unanticipated and unbudgeted for, you need to credit that. That's just common sense. So that's the reason for the explanation in the goals and objectives, and I just wanted to clarify that now that comes full circle with the financial report. So yeah, we're in good shape. So even absent all of that, we're still in the black, just over $17,000.
So are we, is there, like, I guess for lack of a better term, a degree of transparency with regard to not grants, but revenues? In other words, could I say to you, I need a sheet on revenues to determine, is that being tracked?
So revenues are being tracked. I'm not happy with how they're being tracked. I think we have to make some recommendations on on how to track them better. And I'll explain more in that in detail, but I am not happy. So let me back up. I'm delighted of the level of detail in the revenue reports that we're receiving right now, because to be honest, we just didn't get that type of revenue, that type of detail from the town before. So I'm delighted that, one, I'm getting a revenue report, I'm getting one regularly, but I would like to see some more finality and detail in the revenue report. And I think that's important, and I will talk to you gentlemen about that. That's a recommendation I think we have to make. Just so we're clear, we think we know pretty well what revenues that we bring in, right? But we don't always see the checks that come back. Sometimes they go directly to the town finance department and they bypass us, or they go directly to the town clerk, or they go directly to the town tax officer, Brenda Lapointe, right? They go directly to her. Sometimes we don't see them, and so we can't track them. But ultimately, the checks that we get all go to the town finance department, and Sherry does a great job at telling them where that money needs to, what lines that needs to be accredited to, or go back into, or whatever the case may be. However, I think there's a little confusion that exists over grant monies, especially because we're doing a lot of grants. We have a lot of different grant funding coming in. And I think all of that, rather than it go in one big grant bucket, right, which is essentially what they do, it should be broken out a little bit better, right? So you should have a line and an account for highway safety. You should have a line and account for liquor. You should have a line and an account for DOJ, okay, and so forth and so on. So if you're doing a specific grant project, I think we ought to be tracking the money by that project. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, and the other thing too is we need, as a department, you need to know that all of the grant money is coming back, or coming
That's
to the
correct.
department that
That's
they're
correct.
supposed to be getting, because you're spending that money in advance of the receipt of the grant money itself, the
That's
grant
correct.
check. So you need to make sure those two are the same.
That's correct, and to put it quite plainly, yeah, we have to know if we're providing a service. In this particular case, highway safety is really, we're providing a service to the federal government. The federal government has said, hey, we want DWI enforcement, or we want speed enforcement, or we want this on your roads, and we're willing to pay for it. Okay, fine, we'll do it for you, federal government. So we do the service. You're right, we got to make sure if we're providing a service for a particular vendor, in this case highway safety, right, or the federal government through highway safety, we need to make sure that we're being reimbursed for that. Absolutely.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
I think what we're talking about, something that's really positive for the police department, that is to get the credit for the expenses that come in, that you pay out initially, but then we get them reimbursed back. Make that as a form of an objective, again, as part of the budget process.
That's a great
to
idea.
look at, being able to get those figures. Because
That's
if you
a great
can go
idea.
to the budget committee, or the township manager, the selectmen, or to the people in town and say, this is how much we provide
That's right.
as revenue back to offset our costs. We're not just, a big expense.
Right, we're not, and that's a great point, and that's actually a great idea, and I'll go ahead and do that. I'll make an adjustment to the fiscal year 22 goals and objectives, and we'll list that out as an objective under goal number 1. Great idea. But you're absolutely correct about that. We're not like the electric department, right, which is a enterprise fund.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're never going to be able to fund our operation completely, right, 100%. We know we're not going to be able to do that. However, it's important to know that we do generate revenue, and we don't generate a little bit of revenue. We actually generate what I would call a significant amount of revenue in the form of grants, in the form of something else. So just real quick, and people say, well, what else do you do? No, parking, we don't get any parking tickets, right? That money doesn't come back to the PD, it goes into the general fund. But there is work we do for the state that we do get reimbursed for. So when the captain, for example, does manages the sexual registry for sex offenders. So when the captain does work, that's on behalf of the state. The town of Wolfboro is reimbursed for that. They're reimbursed for his time to do that. So there are these things that that generates a lot of revenue. We do get, when we enforce, say, a fish and game violation,
Yeah.
or we enforce a liquor violation, all liquor monies come directly back to the town, and it goes to the general fund. It goes to offset, presumably, the tax burden for the following year. That money has to be tracked. We have to know what we're bringing in. Another one is public agency reimbursement expenses, right? So there's a law that says that if we have, in matters of extreme negligence, so Rita, typically something dealing with a DWI crash, maybe a DWI crash takes out a chunk of the power grid of Wolfboro. Public agency reimbursement law says that the town is due that money back. And that's part of the criminal statute. We file that at the court. We file that at district court. If the judge rules in our favor, and most normally they do, the town is reimbursed that cost. It covers police, EMS, fire, public safety. If highway had to come out, electric department had to come out, all that gets reimbursed. So these are, and those are really big. Those are really big bills. Those are tens of thousands of dollars that theoretically would come back. The Christina Fay case is another good example. We not only did we take that criminally and get reimbursed a percentage of our cost of care, but we also took that civilly. That was handled out of my office as well. And the town was reimbursed $20,000 civilly for the civil violations, and those were all dog licensing violations and things along those lines. So that revenue comes directly back to the town, and that's why it's important to track that stuff.
Well, and I think too, when you're going through the budget process, it's important to list that. When you're asking the town for X amount of dollars to fund your budget for the year, a portion of that does come back to the town.
It does.
It doesn't come back to the PD, but it comes back to the town.
It comes back to the town.
And that's important to be noted, so. Okay.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, that basically concludes my report on the fiscal year 21 budget. If you gentlemen have no further questions, unless something else pops up on the fiscal year 21 budget, I'm about ready to close the books on it and start focusing in on fiscal year 22. Bottom line, I think we're fine. I'm not seeing any red flags here. I know there may be a couple of bills that come in, but they're not going to be $17,000 worth of bills.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
All right?
Appreciate that.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay.
And gentlemen, subject to your questions, I believe that's all I have. I do have several items under both personnel and litigation for non-public.
Okay.
But that, no, let it-
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I do have one alibi. Catherine, why don't you go and you get that approved?
Yeah, so we got the yearly statistics that we're gonna give over to the county attorney's office.
That's my next thing to do.
So there they are.
Oh, okay.
So you guys can review it. I only printed one, sorry about that. But that's our yearly statistics for what they need to be reported up there.
Okay.
So I just want to give it to you all and review, and then I'll get it back up to them.
Yeah, if I could have a vote on that in public session, gentlemen, so I can send that to the county attorney's office.
I have a letter here that I have to sign with regard to that we're gonna vote on.
Okay, roger that, sir.
Yeah, an answer to her email.
Now put it together and send it up.
Well, Commissioner Coop is reviewing those statistics. Just want to mention our next meeting will be held here at the Bradley Room at the Wolfboro Public Library on Thursday, March 17th at 4 p.m. And this is a letter that's addressed to Attorney Michaela Andruzzi, the county attorney, and basically says, please see the attached document for the Wolfboro Police Department statistics. Wolfboro Police Commission has reviewed and approved for submission these statistics based upon the guidance and format requested by your office in an email sent on January 20, 2022. Captain Mark Libby, the department's executive officer, has the raw data used in the computation of the spreadsheet. If you or your team would like to review the data, which is produced by our IMC police software, please make arrangements with either Captain Libby or Chief Rondeau, who are at the commission's point, or are the commission's points of contact for this information. As always, we enjoy your support of the Wolfboro Police Department and the town of Wolfboro. We're happy to provide whatever data or assistance you may need. Thank you for the opportunity to help. So with that, I will entertain a motion to, one, approve the statistics as compiled by Captain Libby,
I would make that amendment.
and also
Proposal.
to approve this letter to be sent to her along with that data.
As part two of it, to include
Yeah.
the letter. Yeah.
Okay?
I second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Coop. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. And we'll put that little task to bed.
Okay, I'll give it to Mark.
I won't lose it. Actually, I'm gonna send it out.
Okay. We do not have a selectman's rep here. Mr. Walensky, any public input? Okay. At this point then, I will entertain a motion to enter non-public session under RSA :91-A for personal and litigation matters.
I move that we move to non-public session after we end the other, this session.
So your motion to move out of public into non-public?
Yes.
Okay.
I second it.
Second, we are going to take a roll call vote on this. Commissioner O'Brien,
Yes.
Commissioner Coop,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wood is also a yes. Stand in recess while we clear the room. Thank you.